Hey everybody, Darren with Vinyl Corner. Today we've got some really fun stuff. You know, what's interesting about music, it's kind of like music and the smell of perfume or cologne or something. Music is really a great reminder of your history. You ever ride in a car and you get a song that you hadn't heard in a while, and you're thinking of the song, but also you start thinking of back when that song was popular and back when that and the things that were going on then, and you remember things that you just don't normally remember. And while I was researching this, and I've got a nice size collection, and I will sometimes it'd be a long time since I listened. So when I do these, I kind of listen to them again, and I start thinking, oh my gosh, I remember. And you start to remember the time. A couple of them I was at Louisiana Tech, and I remember it's when I was starting to date my wife, and I remember kind of just the things that were going around at the time, and that silliness, and one of them's a little early. At the time I was working at KSIG in Crowley. I don't think it's there anymore, but all the buddies and the friends and all the things that we were doing at the time when that became popular was one of the things. One thing I do want to shout out is I've got a buddy who is in New Orleans right now, Fred Harmon. He is playing drums on that 1,000-man band that's happening at the Superdome. So I want to wish him very much luck. And if by chance you just, happen to be going to New Orleans and go see him, I think he's somewhere in one of the corners, but he's somewhere in the mass of the other 150, 200 drummers or so that they've got. But I'm hoping his wife sends me a recording because I want to kind of see it. He did send me a set list. I really, really hope his wife sends me a recording. Good luck, and I hope you do a great job, buddy. Restless Heart's debut album. Restless Heart's debut album came in '85. It came out around when I was first starting it at this radio station, KXKZ in Ruston. It has a great, was a great kind of band. Their sound was really, really intriguing because it was kind of a blend of adult contemporary and softer rock with a little guitar edge because they've got a wonderful guitar player. And it kind of changed a little bit of the norm of what we were listening to. The video age was coming, and they were really experimenting with that. They had 5 top 10 songs on here, 2 top 10 on adult contemporary. Let the Heartache Ride, I Want Everyone to Cry, Heartbreak Kid, Restless Heart, which is just, I've heard tons of different versions of Restless Heart. And one thing you would understand is there's a lot of country songs that you would find on a variety of different artist records. It may not have been the hit, but sometimes they do become, because Restless Heart, actually, there's a great Juice Newton version, there's a great Nitty Gritty Dirt Band version, and this one, they had one called Till I Loved You, and that actually was the one that was the highest charted one for the adult contemporary. Really strong record, great debut. It was their first of 5 gold albums, and they would continue to have great success throughout the 80s and early 90s. This one is a band that hit the wall. You know, they used to always have a saying that, man, the first guy that goes through the wall is the one that gets beat and battered. So they were the first one to release and really try to start changing this sound of country music. And that was Wild Choir. It was among those progressive rock or progressive country bands we talked about earlier when we were talking about Highway 101, Dwight Yoakam. We will talk in a little bit about Steve Earle. But they had a great sound, and their ace up their sleeve is Gail Davies. Gail Davies had been in country for years. She had 20 top 10 songs over the 10 years prior to this album's release, 40 top 40 songs in the country genre, a couple of gold albums. She had that very good country sound, a little bit of the twanginess, a little high on the twang guitar. She didn't do the orchestration like some of the other songs are doing. But she did the singing on here, and she wrote half the stuff. There's a wonderful group of songs in here. This Time was their kind of big hit. They do have a wonderful version of Safe in the Arms of Love, which would later go on and be a big hit for Martina McBride. This, to me, is one of the most underrated and undervalued debut albums or even country albums that was released in the 80s. It is really truly a great gem that should have gotten a lot more love, but at that time they kind of didn't know what to do with it because the sound of it was pushing that boundary, and it was one of the first ones to come in and really break that boundary. Southern Pacific. Hey, this is what happens when you get a member of Creedence and some members of the Doobie Brothers together. They form a country rock band. And the first time I heard a song off of this was when I was living in Crowley, and it was on the rock radio station. They have a song called Thing About You on their debut album. That's from Tom Petty. Tom Petty had it in Hard Promises LP. And they redid it, and they have done a wonderful job with it. Emmylou Harris comes in, and you know, and I may be the only one that thinks this, but anytime you have Emmylou Harris on a record, it's not going to be bad. But and that's just me because I'm an Emmylou Harris nut. But this is a wonderful debut record. They would have some good success. This one had 2 top 10 songs and another top 40. Thing About You actually was a mainstream rock hit. Did well. Tour was well. The album did solid. Kind of cusped right under the gold mark, but it's a great listen. This one actually kind of really brought a little bit more of the orchestration, but his thing was he broke country music's thought process of you get rushed to release those records, but you really only get a couple of songs on a record, then you got to go in and do another one. As far as singles, this one had 6 singles, and all 6 went to top 20, and 4 of them went into the top 10 in country, and one of them actually was another adult contemporary hit, and we're talking about Steve Warner's debut LP. Steve Warner is a hell of a guitar player, and he gets lost in the shuffle when we start talking about these great guitar players. I always notice when you see those big lists of great guitar players, it's always rock guys, or it might be a jazz and R&B guys, and they forget how wonderful country musicians were. I mean, Vince Gill can play circles around many guys in the rock, and Steve Warner is the same way. I saw a thing on CMT, and I forget what the show is, but they both were playing, and this was in the 80s when Vince Gill had just left Pure Prairie League, and he was doing some solo stuff, and he had some success. He had a song called Cinderella out at the time, but they both were on there, and they started wailing. They started doing this call and response wail on guitar, and I have seen dueling guitarists in a band that did not even touch what these guys were creating. But this is a wonderful debut album. It does have a little bit of some symphonics to it, but when you think of it, it's got 10 songs on it, and 6 of those went top 20 in country, and one of them went top 20 in adult contemporary. But it is a great record. Came out in '83. And again, this was one that I heard when I was working at a radio station in Crowley. So wonderful find. So finally, we're going to talk about Steve Earle. Steve Earle, this is one of my most favorite records of all time. This is what I would consider a desert island record. I even have it on CD, so it's a desert island item. 3 of the songs, top 10. Someday, Goodbye Is All We Have Left to Say, Guitar Town. Completely different style. Like I said, he was getting more of the progressive country. It kind of sounds like a lot of the older country, with the guitars just cranked up a bit. And it's just wonderful. He has a band called the Dukes, and I don't think there's a poor player in any of them. But this is a great debut album. His first 3 albums, really, you cannot go wrong with it. Exit Zero came out, didn't really have a good single to push. It had Nowhere Road and a few things. Getting Tough and a couple other things on it. This is just, to me, one of the best country records that you will hear of any time frame. On his third LP, Copperhead Road, it just blew up because now you had classic rock stations playing this song. And so you had these rock stations playing it, and of course country music was playing it, and it goes top 10 in mainstream rock, and it goes top 10 in country music. That tour blew up, and it became huge because it attracted other fans to it, and then they were introduced to some of the other items. But Guitar Town is just such a wonderful debut album. So those are the choices of some great debut country records, and some of them really, really changed what became acceptable on country radio as it progressed from the 70s, early 80s into what the late 80s would be. And it got it ready for what I would consider, and what a lot of people call the cowboy hat era, with Garth Brooks and Clint Black and Alan Jackson and you name it, and a bunch of others that then moved it on to a different level. And it continues to kind of progress, because right now it's another different level where there's some that I think, man, it's like the same guy singing this song. And you get 4 songs on the radio, they all sound like the same guy, but they're 4 different guys. And then you get one that's just really unique, like you get a Chris Stapleton or a Luke Combs or Whiskey Myers, or you get anything like that, which then kind of starts to change my mind about what's going on in new country. So I'm starting to kind of dig some of it. But like anything, you find what you like and you love what you like. And that's all I'm telling you to do. Give these a shot. Try to listen to them. You can get them all on YouTube and listen to any of them. But love what you love and enjoy yourself. And again, good luck tonight, Fred. Y'all have a great week.